Why is the Electoral College important? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 131, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 131. Why the Electoral College is important, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The Electoral College is important because it is the constitutional mechanism through which the United States elects its president and vice president. Established in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution and refined by the 12th Amendment, the Electoral College reflects the framers' desire to balance the principles of popular sovereignty, federalism, and deliberative choice. U.S. Constant Art. 2. Sector 1. Amend. 12. Rather than relying solely on a national popular vote or on congressional selection, the framers created a system that blended state and federal authority, ensuring both the voice of the people and the role of the states in presidential elections. One key importance of the Electoral College lies in its role as a federalist safeguard. Each state is allocated electors equal to the number of its senators and representatives, which means that both population and statehood factor into presidential elections. This design prevents more populous states from overwhelming smaller ones, preserving balance within the Union. As Alexander Hamilton explained in the Federalist No. 68, the Electoral College was meant to produce a system of choice that would reflect the will of the people while protecting against undue influence, corruption, or domination by regional majorities, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, 1788/2003. Practically, the Electoral College requires presidential candidates to build broad coalitions across states rather than appealing only to densely populated regions. By compelling candidates to seek support nationwide, the system reinforces the principle that the president represents the entire republic. Though the Electoral College has been the subject of debate, particularly when the winner of the electoral vote has lost the national popular vote, it remains a defining feature of how the U.S. balances democracy with federalism. Edwards, 2019. Spiritually and ethically, the Electoral College embodies the principle of harmony through diversity. It reflects the covenant that all states, large and small, must have a role in shaping national leadership. While the popular vote ensures attention to the people's voice, the allocation of electors ensures that the Union itself, conceived as a partnership of sovereign states, remains central to the democratic process. In this sense, the Electoral College expresses the deeper truth that unity requires balance between the individual and the collective, between population and statehood. Ultimately, the Electoral College is important because it preserves the federal structure of the United States, ensures that presidential elections reflect both the will of the people and the role of the states, and encourages candidates to seek broad national support. Though debated, it reflects the framers' enduring attempt to blend liberty with order, majority rule with minority protection, and popular sovereignty with federal balance. By sustaining these principles, the Electoral College remains a vital part of the constitutional covenant of peace and harmony. References: Edwards, G.C., 2019. Why the Electoral College is Bad for America, 3rd edition. Yale University Press. Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. 2. Sector 1. Amend. 12. Would you like me to continue with paper number 132 on the next civics test question about who signs bills so they can become law? What is one part of judicial branch? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 132, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 132. One part of the judicial branch, Oren, Leora, and Salis. One part of the judicial branch is the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the nation. Established under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Supreme Court serves as the final arbiter of constitutional interpretation and the guardian of the rule of law. U.S. Constant Art. 3. Sector 1. Its authority extends over all cases arising under the Constitution, federal laws, and treaties, making it an essential institution for ensuring justice and maintaining balance within the federal system. The importance of the Supreme Court lies in its power of judicial review, affirmed in the landmark case Marbury v. Madison, 1803. This authority allows the court to determine whether laws or executive actions are consistent with the Constitution. By exercising this power, the Supreme Court protects individual rights, restrains governmental overreach, and sustains the principles of democracy. As Alexander Hamilton explained in the Federalist No. 78, the judiciary was designed to be the least dangerous branch because it lacked control over the sword or the purse. Yet its independence and duty to interpret the law made it essential to liberty. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, 1788/2003. Practically, the Supreme Court ensures uniformity in the interpretation of federal law across the states. It hears cases that have broad national significance, resolving disputes that impact the rights of millions. Decisions such as Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, and Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015, illustrate how the court has played a pivotal role in advancing justice and equality, demonstrating its responsibility to guide the nation through moral and legal challenges. Spiritually and ethically, the Supreme Court represents the covenant of justice at the heart of the American experiment. While Congress embodies deliberation and the president symbolizes action, the court embodies discernment. It reminds the nation that law is not merely power but principle, and that peace and harmony can only flourish when judgments are guided by fairness, equity, and the dignity of all persons. The court's very design, lifetime appointments insulated from direct political pressures, reflects the ethical imperative that justice must remain impartial and enduring. Ultimately, one part of the judicial branch is the Supreme Court. As the highest tribunal in the land, it ensures that the Constitution remains a living covenant of liberty, justice, and human flourishing. By interpreting and upholding the nation's most sacred principles, the Supreme Court sustains the balance of power and preserves the harmony of the Republic. References: Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. Marbury v. Madison, 5 U.S. 1 Cranch, 137, 1803. U.S. Constant Art. 3. Sector 1. Would you like me to continue with paper number 133 on the next civics test question about what does the judicial branch do? Supreme Court justices serve for life. Why? Free from politics? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 133, Oren, Leora, and Salas, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 133. Why Supreme Court justices serve for life. Oren, Leora, and Salas. Supreme Court justices serve for life in order to preserve the independence of the judiciary and to keep the judicial branch free from the shifting tides of politics. Article 3. Section 1 of the Constitution provides that federal judges shall hold their offices during good behavior, effectively granting lifetime tenure unless a justice resigns, retires, or is removed through impeachment. U.S. Constant Art. 3. Sector 1. This design reflects the framers' conviction that an independent judiciary was essential to the survival of liberty in a republic. Alexander Hamilton, in the Federalist No. 78, explained that lifetime appointments were necessary to protect judges from political pressures and external influence. Without secure tenure, judges might be swayed by the interests of the moment or by fear of losing their position, undermining their ability to uphold the Constitution faithfully. Lifetime service ensures that justices can base their decisions solely on law and principle, rather than on the demands of politics or the preferences of those in power. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, 1788/2003. Practically, life tenure also provides continuity and stability in constitutional interpretation. Because justices serve for decades, their judgments carry the weight of long-term vision rather than short-term calculation. This stability fosters public trust in the court as a consistent guardian of the Constitution, even as individual administrations and Congresses change. Moreover, by insulating justices from electoral cycles, lifetime service allows them to make unpopular but necessary decisions, such as Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, without fear of political retaliation. Spiritually and ethically, lifetime tenure symbolizes the sacred trust placed in those called to interpret the law at the highest level. It affirms that justice must stand above ambition, partisanship, and personal gain. By granting justices independence, the Constitution honors the principle that peace and harmony are best preserved when the law is interpreted with impartiality and integrity. The life term embodies the moral truth that justice, to be true, must be enduring and not beholden to temporary forces. Ultimately, Supreme Court justices serve for life so that the judiciary can remain a bulwark of liberty, free from the corrosive effects of politics. This arrangement ensures that justices interpret the Constitution with impartiality, courage, and long-term wisdom. By insulating the judiciary from immediate political pressures, lifetime tenure sustains the covenant of justice, protecting the republic's balance of power and preserving the harmony of democracy for generations to come. References: Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. 3. Sector 1. Would you like me to continue with paper number 134 on the next civics test question about who is the commander-in-chief of the military? What is the purpose of the 10th Amendment? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 134, Oren, Leora, and Salas, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 134. The purpose of the 10th Amendment, Oren, Leora, and Salas. The purpose of the 10th Amendment is to affirm the principle of federalism by reserving to the states and to the people all powers not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution. Ratified in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, the amendment states, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." U.S. Constant Amend. 10. This simple yet profound statement ensures that the federal government remains limited in scope, protecting the autonomy of state governments and the liberties of individuals. The 10th Amendment reflects the framers' conviction that concentrated power is a threat to liberty. Having lived under the overreach of British monarchy and parliament, the founders sought to create a system in which authority would be distributed rather than centralized. James Madison emphasized in the Federalist Papers that the powers of the federal government would be few and defined, while those reserved to the states would be numerous and indefinite. Madison, Hamilton, and J. 1788/2003. The 10th Amendment thus codifies this vision, serving as a constitutional safeguard against federal encroachment. Practically, the amendment preserves the flexibility of states to govern according to their unique circumstances and the will of their citizens. Issues not expressly assigned to the federal government, such as education, policing, and local infrastructure, fall under state authority. This structure allows for diversity in governance, enabling states to act as laboratories of democracy, where policies can be tested, adapted, and improved before potentially being adopted at the national level. Grodzins, 1966. Spiritually and ethically, the 10th Amendment embodies the principle of harmony between unity and diversity. While the Constitution binds the nation together under one federal government, the 10th Amendment honors the individuality of states and the sovereignty of the people. It reflects the truth that peace flourishes when authority is shared rather than monopolized, and when local communities retain the power to shape their own destinies. This covenantal balance between national unity and local autonomy sustains the Republic's integrity and resilience. Ultimately, the purpose of the 10th Amendment is to preserve the balance of power between the federal government, the states, and the people. By limiting centralized authority, it protects liberty, encourages innovation, and affirms the dignity of self-governance at every level. In this way, the amendment not only strengthens federalism, but also sustains the covenant of peace and harmony upon which the United States was founded. References: Grodzins, M. 1966. The American System, A New View of Government in the United States. Rand McNally. Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Amend. X. Would you like me to continue with paper number 135 on the next civics test question about who is the commander-in-chief of the military? What are 3 rights of everyone living in the United States? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 135, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 135. 3 rights of everyone living in the United States, Oren, Leora, and Salis. 3 rights of everyone living in the United States are the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, and the right to due process of law. These rights are not limited to citizens, but extend to all individuals residing in the country, reflecting the constitutional commitment to universal human dignity. They are protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, serving as the foundation of liberty, equality, and justice in American society. U.S. Constant Amends. IV 14. The freedom of expression is guaranteed by the First Amendment, which protects the rights to speech, press, assembly, and petition. This freedom ensures that individuals may voice their ideas, opinions, and criticisms without fear of government retaliation. It is essential to democracy, for open dialogue allows citizens to hold leaders accountable and to participate meaningfully in civic life. Spiritually, freedom of expression embodies the covenant of truth, affirming that peace and harmony arise when voices are heard rather than silenced. The freedom of religion is also protected by the First Amendment, which prohibits the establishment of a national religion and guarantees the free exercise of faith. This right reflects the framers' vision of a nation where individuals could live according to their conscience without coercion. By safeguarding both belief and non-belief, the Constitution affirms the sacred autonomy of the individual in matters of spirit. This freedom ensures that the United States remains a place where diverse traditions can coexist, creating harmony and difference. The right to due process of law is enshrined in the 5th and 14th Amendments, which guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. This right ensures that everyone, citizen or non-citizen, receives fair treatment under the law, including the right to a fair trial and protection against arbitrary detention. Ethically, due process reflects the principle that justice must be impartial, transparent, and rooted in respect for human dignity. It is a safeguard of both liberty and peace within the Republic. Together, these 3 rights illustrate the United States' commitment to protecting not only its citizens, but all people within its borders. Freedom of expression, freedom of religion, and due process embody the moral and constitutional promise that dignity, liberty, and justice are not privileges, but universal guarantees. Ultimately, these rights sustain the covenant of democracy, ensuring that the nation remains a place of peace, harmony, and human flourishing. References. U.S. Constant Amends. IV 14. Would you like me to continue with paper number 136 on the next civics test question about what do we show loyalty to when we say the Pledge of Allegiance? How can people become United States citizens? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 136, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 136. How people can become United States citizens, Oren, Leora, and Salis. People can become United States citizens in 2 primary ways, by birthright citizenship or through the process of naturalization. These 2 paths embody the nation's dual commitment to recognizing the inherent dignity of those born on its soil and welcoming newcomers who choose to join its covenant of democracy. Together, they ensure that citizenship remains both a natural inheritance and an accessible aspiration. U.S. Constant Amend. 14. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. USCIS 2023. Birthright citizenship is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, which declares that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the country and of the state where they reside. This principle, affirmed in United States v. Wong Kim Ark, 1898, reflects the nation's commitment to equality by ensuring that citizenship is not restricted by ancestry, class, or parentage. Birthright citizenship provides immediate membership in the American community, affirming that those born within the nation's boundaries are full participants in its civic covenant. Naturalization, by contrast, is the legal process through which immigrants can become U.S. citizens. Applicants must generally meet residency requirements, demonstrate good moral character, pass an English and civics examination, and take an oath of allegiance to the United States. The naturalization oath is not merely a legal formality, it is a solemn covenant in which new citizens pledge loyalty to the Constitution and commit to the responsibilities of democratic life. USCIS 2023. Naturalization reflects the inclusive spirit of America, offering a pathway for individuals from diverse backgrounds to join in the nation's shared journey of liberty and justice. Spiritually and ethically, these two pathways affirm the United States as both a homeland and a chosen community. Birthright citizenship symbolizes belonging by nature, while naturalization symbolizes belonging by choice. Both reflect the principle that citizenship is not only a status, but also a relationship, an ongoing practice of loyalty, participation, and responsibility. By embracing both paths, the United States sustains peace and harmony, weaving together the voices of native-born and immigrant citizens into one covenant of self-government. Ultimately, people can become U.S. citizens either by being born in the United States or through naturalization. These pathways ensure that citizenship remains open, inclusive, and rooted in both justice and human dignity. By preserving these processes, the nation honors its founding ideals and sustains its covenant of liberty, equality, and flourishing for generations to come. References: U.S. Constant Amend. 14. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. 2023 Naturalization Overview. https://www.uscis.gov. United States v. Wong Kim Ark, 169 U.S. 649, 1898. Would you like me to continue with paper number 137 on the next civics test question about what are two ways that Americans can participate in their democracy? What is one way Americans can serve their country? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 137, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 137. One way Americans can serve their country. Oren, Leora, and Salis. One way Americans can serve their country is by voting in elections. Voting is both a right and a responsibility, enshrined in the Constitution and secured through generations of struggle and reform. It is the primary means by which citizens express their consent to be governed, hold leaders accountable, and shape the policies that affect their communities. Through the act of voting, Americans embody the principle of self-government and renew the covenant of democracy. U.S. Constant Amend. 15, 19, 26. The importance of voting lies in its role as the most direct expression of popular sovereignty, the idea that government derives its legitimacy from the will of the people. By casting a ballot, citizens translate their values, concerns, and hopes into tangible outcomes. James Madison argued in the Federalist Papers that Republican government depends on this active participation, as it ensures leaders remain dependent on the people alone. Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, 1788/2003. Without participation, liberty risks erosion and government risks detachment from those it is meant to serve. Practically, voting allows citizens to influence decisions on a wide range of issues, from local school funding to national defense. It empowers individuals to select representatives, approve policies, and even amend constitutions at the state level. Beyond presidential elections, voting in local and midterm contests ensures that the government remains responsive at every level. Thus, service through voting is not occasional but continual, woven into the daily fabric of civic life. Spiritually and ethically, voting is an act of devotion to peace and harmony. It represents the individual's contribution to the collective good, affirming the dignity of every voice in shaping the future. In this sense, voting transcends politics and becomes a sacred responsibility, a way of honoring ancestors who fought for freedom, of protecting present communities, and of blessing future generations with justice. Ultimately, one way Americans can serve their country is by voting. This simple yet profound act sustains the covenant of democracy, ensuring that the United States remains a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. By voting, citizens do more than select leaders. They participate in the ongoing journey of liberty, justice, and human flourishing, keeping alive the promise of peace and harmony. References: Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Amend. 15, 19, 26. Would you like me to continue with paper number 138 on the next civics test question about what Benjamin Franklin is famous for? Why is it important to pay federal taxes? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 138, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 138. Why it is important to pay federal taxes, Oren, Leora, and Salis. It is important to pay federal taxes because taxation provides the financial foundation for the federal government to function and serve the people. Article 1. Section 8 of the Constitution grants Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises in order to fund government operations and promote the general welfare. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 8. Without federal taxes, the government could not maintain national defense, build infrastructure, protect public health, support education, or provide social safety nets. Taxes make possible the common goods and services upon which democracy depends. The requirement to pay taxes also reflects the principle of shared responsibility within a republic. In the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton argued that taxation was indispensable to national survival, emphasizing that money is, with propriety, considered as the vital principle of the body politic. Hamilton, Madison. And J. 1788/2003. By contributing financially, citizens collectively ensure that the government has the resources to secure liberty, enforce laws, and respond to crises. This shared duty binds individuals into a covenant of mutual care, reminding each person that self-government requires both rights and obligations. Practically, federal taxes enable fairness and stability by pooling resources to address needs that individuals or local communities cannot manage alone. From funding disaster relief to maintaining highways, from ensuring national defense to supporting scientific research, taxation reflects the recognition that some responsibilities are best shared at the national level. Moreover, taxes redistribute resources in ways that promote equality and opportunity, helping to sustain a society in which liberty can be meaningfully exercised by all. Spiritually and ethically, paying federal taxes embodies the principle of covenantal stewardship. It is an acknowledgement that peace and harmony require investment in the common good. Taxes are not simply financial obligations, but symbolic commitments to the flourishing of the nation and the dignity of its people. They reflect the truth that citizenship involves not only enjoying freedoms, but also contributing to the collective well-being of society. Ultimately, paying federal taxes is important because it sustains the functioning of government, upholds shared responsibility, and affirms the covenant of democracy. Taxes allow the republic to protect liberty, deliver justice, and promote human flourishing for all who live within its borders. By fulfilling this duty, citizens participate in a sacred cycle of giving and receiving, ensuring that peace and harmony endure across generations. References: Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 8. Would you like me to continue with paper number 139 on the next civics test question about who wrote the Declaration of Independence? It is important for all men age 18 through 25 to register for the Selective Service. Name one reason why. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 139, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 139. One reason why it is important to register for the Selective Service, Oren, Leora, and Salis. One reason it is important for all men ages 18 through 25 to register for the Selective Service is that registration ensures the United States can maintain a system of national defense readiness in times of crisis. While the nation currently relies on an all-volunteer military, the Selective Service provides a mechanism for mobilization if Congress and the President were ever to reinstate a military draft. Registration, therefore, acts as a safeguard, ensuring that the government can respond swiftly and effectively in the event of war or national emergency. Selective Service System, SSS, 2023. The requirement to register reflects the constitutional principle that defense of the nation is a shared responsibility. Article 1 of the Constitution empowers Congress to raise and support armies, while Article 2 designates the President as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 8, Art. 2, Sector 2. Registration with the Selective Service System provides the government with the logistical framework necessary to fulfill these constitutional duties if the survival of the nation is at stake. By registering, individuals contribute to the collective security upon which liberty depends. Practically, Selective Service registration also serves as a civic obligation tied to other rights and opportunities. In many cases, men who fail to register become ineligible for federal student aid, certain government jobs, and naturalization as U.S. citizens. These connections underscore the idea that responsibilities and privileges are intertwined in a democratic society. Service is not simply demanded, it is linked to the broader covenant of belonging and participation in the nation's civic life. Henkin, 2006. Spiritually and ethically, registering for the Selective Service symbolizes a commitment to protect peace and harmony. It reflects the understanding that liberty requires sacrifice and that the blessings of freedom are preserved not only through individual rights, but also through collective responsibility. To register is to acknowledge the possibility of service for the sake of one's community and to affirm that self-government depends on both devotion and readiness. Ultimately, one reason it is important for men aged 18 through 25 to register for the Selective Service is to ensure national defense preparedness. This act preserves the nation's ability to respond to crises, fulfills constitutional obligations, and embodies the covenant of responsibility that sustains democracy. By registering, citizens affirm their role in protecting liberty and ensuring that peace and harmony endure for future generations. References: Henkin, L. 2006. The Age of Rights. Columbia University Press. Selective Service System. 2023. Why is registration important? https://www.sss.gov. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 8, Art. 2, Sector 2. Would you like me to continue with paper number 140 on the next civics test question about who wrote the Declaration of Independence? What war did the Americans fight to win independence from Britain? American Revolution? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 140, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 140. The war Americans fought to win independence from Britain. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The war that Americans fought to win independence from Britain was the American Revolutionary War, also known simply as the Revolutionary War or the American Revolution. Fought between 1775 and 1783, this conflict arose from growing tensions between the 13 colonies and the British Crown over issues such as taxation without representation, restrictions on self-government, and the denial of colonial rights. The war was not only a military struggle, but also a profound assertion of the principle that governments derive their legitimacy from the consent of the governed. Middlecoff, 2005. The revolution formally began with the battles of Lexington and Concord in April 1775, where colonial militias clashed with British troops. These early encounters set off a broader war that would eventually span much of North America and involve European powers, most notably France. With the adoption of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, the colonies announced their intent to sever political ties with Britain and establish themselves as free and independent states. Jefferson, 1776-1999. This declaration gave the conflict not only a military dimension, but also a philosophical and moral one, rooted in the ideals of liberty, equality, and self-determination. The Revolutionary War concluded with the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, in which Britain recognized the independence of the United States. The victory was secured not only through military campaigns, such as the decisive American and French triumph at Yorktown in 1781, but also through the perseverance of ordinary colonists who supported the cause. The war thus became both a national and international affirmation of the right of a people to govern themselves. Spiritually and ethically, the American Revolution represents more than armed conflict. It symbolizes the covenant of freedom and the willingness to sacrifice for peace and harmony. The struggles and sacrifices of the revolution remind citizens that liberty is not given but earned through courage, resilience, and collective responsibility. It was, in essence, a war fought not only with weapons, but also with ideals, laying the foundation for the democratic experiment that continues today. Ultimately, the Americans fought the Revolutionary War to win independence from Britain. This war transformed 13 colonies into a sovereign nation and enshrined the principles of self-government and human dignity into the fabric of American identity. By remembering this struggle, citizens honor the legacy of those who fought for liberty and recommit to preserving peace, harmony, and justice for generations to come. References: Jefferson T., 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed., American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Middlecoff, R., 2005. The Glorious Cause, The American Revolution, 1763 to 1789. Rev. edition. Oxford University Press. Would you like me to continue with paper number 141 on the next civics test question about who the United States fought in World War II? The American Revolution has many events. Name one. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 141, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 141. One event of the American Revolution, Oren, Leora, and Salis. One significant event of the American Revolution was the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. Often described as the turning point of the war, Saratoga was a decisive American victory that altered the trajectory of the conflict. British General John Burgoyne had planned to cut off New England from the rest of the colonies by advancing south from Canada, but his forces were met and ultimately defeated by American troops led by General Horatio Gates and aided by Benedict Arnold, who was still fighting for the patriot cause at that time, Ketchum, 1997. The victory at Saratoga was important for both military and diplomatic reasons. Militarily, it demonstrated that the Continental Army and local militias were capable of defeating a major British force in a large-scale battle. Diplomatically, it persuaded France to enter the war as an ally of the United States. The Franco-American alliance provided essential military support, supplies, and naval power that greatly increased the chances of ultimate victory. Without the success at Saratoga, foreign recognition and assistance may not have materialized, and the revolution might have faltered. The event also illustrates the principle of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. Prior to Saratoga, the revolution had seen both victories and setbacks, and morale was uncertain. The triumph revitalized the revolutionary cause, inspiring confidence among soldiers and citizens alike. It reminded Americans that their fight for liberty was not in vain and that unity could bring about extraordinary achievements. Spiritually and ethically, the Battle of Saratoga symbolizes the covenant of hope and the transformative power of resilience. It reflects the truth that turning points often arise from persistence and faith, even when the outcome seems uncertain. In the broader narrative of the revolution, Saratoga represents not merely a military success, but also a moral victory that strengthened the resolve of a people striving for freedom, peace, and harmony. Ultimately, one defining event of the American Revolution was the Battle of Saratoga, which shifted the balance of the war in favor of the colonists. It secured crucial international support, boosted morale, and affirmed the possibility of independence. Remembering Saratoga is to honor the principle that perseverance, unity, and courage can alter the course of history and sustain the covenant of liberty for generations to come. References: Ketchum, R.M. 1997. Saratoga, Turning Point of America's Revolutionary War. Henry Holt. Would you like me to continue with paper number 142 on the next civics test question about who the United States fought in World War II? Why were the Federalist Papers important? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 142, Orrin, Leora, and Salas, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 142. Why the Federalist Papers were important. Orrin, Leora, and Salas. The Federalist Papers were important because they provided the most comprehensive defense and explanation of the proposed U.S. Constitution during the ratification debates of 1787 to 1788. Written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay under the pseudonym Publius, these 85 essays were published in New York newspapers to persuade skeptical citizens and delegates to support the new Constitution. Hamilton, Madison. And Jay, 1788/2003. Their influence was immediate in the ratification process and enduring in shaping constitutional interpretation. One reason for their importance was their role in addressing public fears of centralized power. Many Americans worried that the new Constitution would create a government too strong, endangering the liberty they had fought for during the Revolution. The Federalist Papers responded directly to these concerns, explaining how the Constitution's system of checks and balances, separation of powers, and federalism would limit governmental authority and preserve individual freedom. In doing so, they reassured citizens that the new framework would strengthen the Union without undermining liberty. The essays were also important because they articulated a clear vision of Republican government rooted in popular sovereignty. Madison's famous Federalist Number 10 argued that a large republic could control the dangers of faction, while Federalist Number 51 explained how ambition in each branch of government would be checked by the ambitions of the others. These essays remain among the most cited sources in constitutional law, providing insight into the framers' intent and guiding the interpretation of the Constitution across generations. Epstein, 1984. Spiritually and ethically, the Federalist Papers symbolize the covenant of reasoned dialogue in a democracy. They demonstrate that freedom and peace are sustained not only through revolution, but also through thoughtful persuasion, public debate, and education. By addressing citizens directly, the authors affirmed the dignity of the people as decision-makers capable of understanding complex arguments about governance. In this sense, the essays reflect harmony between leadership and citizenship, modeling how intellectual engagement can serve the common good. Ultimately, the Federalist Papers were important because they helped secure the ratification of the Constitution and provided a lasting commentary on the principles of American government. They remain a living resource for scholars, judges, and citizens alike, affirming that the strength of a republic rests not only in its institutions, but also in the wisdom and dialogue that sustain them. By embodying the spirit of reason and persuasion, the Federalist Papers continue to nurture peace, liberty, and harmony in American democracy. References: Epstein, D.F., 1984. The Political Theory of the Federalist. University of Chicago Press. Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2000. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. Would you like me to continue with paper number 143 on the next civics test question about what Benjamin Franklin is famous for? What amendment gives citizenship to persons born in the United States? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 143, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 143. The amendment that grants citizenship to persons born in the United States, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The amendment that gives citizenship to persons born in the United States is the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Ratified in 1868 during the Reconstruction era, this amendment's citizenship clause declares, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, U.S. Constant Amend. 14. Sector 1. This clause established the principle of birthright citizenship, guaranteeing that citizenship is not determined by race, ancestry, or parental status, but by the simple fact of being born on American soil. The 14th Amendment was important because it overturned the Supreme Court's infamous decision in Dred Scott v. Sanford, 1857, which had denied citizenship to African Americans. By guaranteeing citizenship to all persons born in the United States, the amendment affirmed the equal dignity of formerly enslaved people and extended constitutional protection to them and their descendants. This transformation represented a moral and legal rebirth of the nation, aligning its laws more closely with the ideals of liberty and equality proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence, Amar, 2005. The amendment also carries profound practical implications. Birthright citizenship provides clarity and stability, ensuring that individuals born in the United States are not rendered stateless. It has also become a cornerstone of American inclusivity, welcoming generations of immigrants' children into full membership of the civic community. This guarantee affirms the United States as both a nation of laws and a nation of hope, where belonging is defined not by heritage, but by presence and participation. Spiritually and ethically, the 14th Amendment embodies the covenant of equality and peace. It affirms that the dignity of each human being is recognized at birth, without condition. By granting citizenship universally, the amendment reflects the truth that harmony in society begins with inclusion rather than exclusion. In this way, it calls the nation to live out its founding promise of justice and flourishing for all. Ultimately, the 14th Amendment gives citizenship to persons born in the United States. By enshrining birthright citizenship, it not only corrected past injustices, but also ensured that the American community would remain open, diverse, and resilient. This amendment stands as a testament to the principle that democracy thrives when liberty is universal, equality is unconditional, and peace and harmony are extended to every child born on the nation's soil. References: Amar A. R. 2005. America's Constitution, a Biography. Random House. U.S. Constant Amend. 14. Sector 1. Dred Scott v. Sanford, 60 U.S., 19 How. 393, 1857. Would you like me to continue with paper number 144 on the next civics test question about who is the first president of the United States? When did all men get the right to vote? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 144, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 144. When all men gain the right to vote, Oren, Leora, and Salis. All men in the United States legally gain the right to vote with the ratification of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution in 1870. This amendment declared that the right to vote could not be denied or abridged on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. U.S. Constant Amend. 15. Sector 1. Adopted during the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, the 15th Amendment sought to enfranchise African American men, particularly formerly enslaved men, and extend to them the full political rights of citizenship. The amendment was a direct response to the struggle for equality in the aftermath of emancipation. While the 14th Amendment had established citizenship for those born in the United States, it did not explicitly guarantee the right to vote. The 15th Amendment filled that gap, affirming that suffrage was an essential component of liberty and democracy. This marked a profound shift in American political life, aligning the nation more closely with the ideals of the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, Jefferson, 1776/1999. However, the promise of the 15th Amendment was not fully realized for nearly a century. Despite its ratification, many states, especially in the South, implemented discriminatory practices such as literacy tests, poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and violent intimidation to suppress African American voting. It was not until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that these barriers were systematically dismantled, giving real force to the 15th Amendment's guarantee Keysar 2000. Thus, while the amendment legally granted the right to vote to all men in 1870, the full exercise of that right was secured only through continued struggle and reform. Spiritually and ethically, the 15th Amendment represents the covenant of justice striving toward completion. It reminds us that legal declarations alone are insufficient without vigilance, courage, and collective commitment to equity. The eventual enforcement of voting rights through later legislation demonstrates the truth that peace and harmony are achieved not instantly, but through persistent devotion to human dignity and fairness. Ultimately, all men gain the right to vote with the ratification of the 15th Amendment in 1870, though the practical realization of that right required the victories of the civil rights movement nearly a century later. This history affirms that democracy is a living covenant, one that demands both the recognition of rights and the relentless pursuit of justice to make those rights real for all. References: Jefferson T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Keysar, A. 2000. The Right to Vote. The Contested History of Democracy in the United States. Basic Books. U.S. Constant Amend. 15. Would you like me to continue with paper number 145 on the next civics test question about when did women get the right to vote? Why did the United States enter World War I? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 145, Oren, Leora, and Salis in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 145. Why the United States entered World War I. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The United States entered World War I in 1917 primarily because of Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and the threat it posed to American lives, commerce, and national security. After years of attempting to remain neutral, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war, arguing that Germany's aggressive tactics had left the United States no choice but to defend its rights and principles. On April 6, 1917, Congress declared war, marking a decisive moment in both American and world history. Keene, 2000. Unrestricted submarine warfare was the most immediate cause. In 1915, the German sinking of the British ocean liner Lusitania killed nearly 1,200 people, including 128 Americans. Although Germany briefly curtailed such attacks, it resumed unrestricted submarine warfare in 1917, targeting not only enemy ships, but also neutral vessels trading with the Allies. This policy directly violated America's right to free navigation and endangered both its citizens and its economic interests. Tuckman, 1962. Another factor was the Zimmerman telegram, a secret communication sent in early 1917 by the German Foreign Minister, Arthur Zimmermann, to Mexico. The telegram proposed a military alliance in which Mexico would join Germany against the United States, with the promise of regaining lost territories in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. When British intelligence intercepted and revealed the telegram, it inflamed American public opinion and reinforced the perception that Germany posed a direct threat to U.S. sovereignty. 2014. Beyond these immediate provocations, the United States also entered the war to defend broader principles of international order and democracy. President Wilson framed the war as a struggle to make the world safe for democracy, positioning America's involvement as a moral duty to protect liberty and self-determination for all peoples. This vision transformed the conflict from a European war into a global fight for justice, giving the U.S. role spiritual as well as political significance. Wilson, 1917-1983. Spiritually and ethically, America's entry into World War I symbolizes the tension between peace and the necessity of action. While the nation had sought to remain neutral, it ultimately embraced the responsibility of defending human dignity against aggression. The decision to enter the war reflected the covenant that liberty must be safeguarded, even at great cost, and that peace requires courage as well as restraint. Ultimately, the United States entered World War I because German actions, unrestricted submarine warfare, and the Zimmermann Telegram compelled it to defend both national security and universal principles of justice. America's participation not only altered the outcome of the war, but also marked the nation's emergence as a global leader committed to protecting peace, harmony, and human flourishing on the world stage. References: Keene, J. D. 2000. First World War. Doughboys, The Great War, and the Remaking of America. Johns Hopkins University Press. Tewes, A. 2014. The Deluge, The Great War, America, and the Remaking of the Global Order, 1916 to 1931. Viking. Tuckman, B. 1962. The Guns of August. Macmillan. Wilson, W. 1983. War Messages, 1917 to 1918. In A. S. Link, ed. The Papers of Woodrow Wilson, Volume 41. Princeton University Press. Original work published 1917. Would you like me to continue with paper number 146 on the next civics test question about who the United States fought in World War II?